Hey guys, welcome back to Common Arts. My name's Joe Barlow, and today I've got another project deconstruction for you. If you've been watching the series so far, then you know I've been watching every single Marvel film and attempting a visual effect from every single one. This week I watched Captain America: The Winter Soldier and attempted to recreate some of the shield effects seen within the Captain America series. This was of course released on my Instagram before I created this project deconstruction, so if you're not already following me on Instagram, then do be sure to do that. If you've not seen the clip though, don't worry, here it is. Right, so here's today's reference shot. Now this is a fight scene from Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and in this fight scene, Captain America fights the Winter Soldier using the shield to defend himself. Now this is something we see throughout all of the Captain America films, the Avenger films, and more recently, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And what we find is a split between the usage of a visual effects shield and a practical shield. It's not always possible to use a practical shield in the shot if there's a stunt going on or some flips, maybe some running. It's not going to be great to have a prop strapped to your arm, and it's just going to be best to replace it with a visual effect. You'll see here Bucky throws the shield at Captain America there, and if we just go back again and watch that once more, this is clearly a visual effect, as is the following shot where it lands within the van. What we'll find within this sequence is a lot of the time, probably the shield is fake. Like I said, it's difficult to have something strapped to your arm while you're performing stunts. And I'm not going to try and attempt to pick out which exact shots are and aren't the shield today, but this is just to take reference for today's visual effect. So here we are over in After Effects, and what we've got today is two separate shots. We've got one where I walk onto scene and do that with the shield. This is something we see Captain America do a couple of times, specifically in the elevator shot from Winter Soldier. Then we see me catching the shield, a bullet ricocheting here. That was just something to add a little bit more to the shot, and then me frisbeeing the shield out of shot. So let's start with shot one. So here we have the clean plate of me walking onto shot and stamping on the ground. And this was me interacting with the shield, or will later be me interacting with the shield. I did shoot this once with a bin lid, just to sort of get reference to where it might be, what it might look like, and also the movement of something round being kicked. Now, you'll notice I'm actually out of focus here, and this is something completely by accident that I did. I must have left it on autofocus and it focused in this area in the foreground. So I actually wanted this to be all one sort of plain focal length, but this is what we ended up with, and I didn't want to reshoot because I didn't really know this was a thing until I got here into After Effects. So we worked with it, and what we did was add some sort of camera lens blur just to sort of match that on our shield once we had imported it. And the way we've created this is the way we create most things 3D in After Effects, and that's using Element 3D. I went ahead and found a 3D model online. Here it is. It's a great model. It's even got the details in the back for the arm to be held in there. Unfortunately, the texture didn't work for me, so I went ahead and found a different one online. Which did mean I had some little artifacts here. I assume this is something that wouldn't have happened if I used the provided textures, but it worked. It did what we needed. So we went ahead and left that as it was. So once we had this, we went ahead and added that camera lens blur to match that focal distance, and I also added a curves just to add a bit of color correction to it. Something else I didn't realize is the camera actually moves within this shot as well. So this is an extra thing I again didn't want to happen, but something I had to sort of fix. So the way I fixed that is I took my footage and ran a 3D camera track on that and created the camera with that data, and that managed to pin the shield into one position for me. And that left us with this here. Now we have me walking shot and stamping on that shield. You'll actually notice I probably stamp in the wrong position there. It wasn't something I was too worried about in the shot. I knew that it was only going to be on for a few frames and then it was going to cut to the next shot. So I feel like I got away with it in this. But there is one thing left to do, and that is of course shadows. Now if I go ahead and turn on this layer here, you'll see there's a shadow underneath it. And what this is just a black solid that I've just, I think I've animated some masks in there. If we just turn those on, You'll see we've got a nice round mask there, and it just shrinks down as the shield lifts up, as a shadow would. What this also does is add a nice little shadow around it. Here is without and with, and it just makes it interact with the surface there a little bit more. Now, if we move on to shot 2, there's a tiny bit more happening in this shot. Of course, we have the shield, but we've also got a bullet flying at me. So here is the base footage, and you'll notice on my arm, I have a track marker on my hand and also one on my arm here. Now, these are something that I was going to use to help track the shield to my arm, but in the end, I didn't use it, and I just sort of hand animated it to my arm. It wasn't an impossible angle to sort of match, so there's something I didn't need to use, and it's actually something I didn't remove, so later on in the shot you can quite visibly see this, but again, not too worried about leaving those on. So the first thing I did, of course, was add the shield. This one has some directional blur on it just to help match that movement, and again the element and the levels there just to help it match the previous shot. As I mentioned, I hand animated this shield onto my arm, so any sort of movements there I've sort of just matched by eye and sort of hope for the best. I think that's both the group 1 null and the null 1. I think I sort of did position on one and rotation on another. I could have done it with one, but I find that sometimes if you use 2 separate nulls to do different values, they interact a little bit nicer together and they don't sort of try and undo the other's movements. So that's the shield straight up on my arm, and this is the sort of movement we got with that. I catch it and throw it like a frisbee. Like the previous shot, I also added a shadow to this. This time the shadow needed to be on my body, and all I've done for that is duplicated the element 3D layer, added a fill, made it black, and then blurred it with Gaussian blur, pretty high value of 200. And you'll see this gives a nice soft shadow just interacting with my body there. I've also gone ahead and grabbed a mask of my body from the footage and used an alpha matte on that, so it only interacts with my body and not around sort of the fence, for example. So if we just sort of scan through, you can sort of just see that shadow interacting with me here, especially when it's close, and then as it's thrown away, it's not over here, it's not over here, it's no longer here because the entire shield isn't on me anymore, but when it's here, it only covers my body. So that is pretty much everything of this shot, and because of that, I wanted to do a little bit something more, just so we have something more to discuss and talk about today, because the shield itself is just a 3D object and tracked on there to look good. So what I decided to do was add some bullets. We see the shield ricochet a lot of different weapons throughout the series, and I want to just do a little bit of that myself here. So the first thing I did was add a muzzle flash. Now this is a muzzle flash from Action Essentials, and I've just laid it over the shield there with the add on the mode, and that looks like that. Let's just shorten that so we can sort of see it. Looks like that there. I've then gone ahead and added an adjustment layer just to sort of brighten up the area around it, like that, and I've used a mask to sort of cut out that specific part on the shield so it doesn't brighten up the entire shot. I then wanted to add a bullet trail to this, and the way I've achieved that is getting a solid, drawing a line on it using the pen tool, adding stroke to that and animating the start and end, and what that gives me is a nice bullet trail like that. I then went ahead and added a directional blur and matched the angle that it's traveling, as well as adding a Gaussian blur just to soften it a little bit, and that gives me my first trail. I then went ahead and repeated the process for the bullet coming off of the shield, like so, and then with the first bullet trail I went ahead and duplicated it just to brighten it up. So the final thing I've done to this shot is add a optical flare, and I've added it just over here, and the idea behind this is as it's thrown, maybe it's reflected the sun or something, just to add a little bit of interaction with the camera there. Of course, when the shots were complete, I added a few final touches. These include a bit of camera shake when I stamp and when the shield passes the camera as well as a bit of color correction here. And a little bit of depth blur on this shot here. I've got rid of some of the background and made me more in focus. and that gives us our entire shot. It's a pretty short one, this, but it is a very simple effect to do. I think the main thing about this is making sure the shield looks real and not like a cartoon just dropped on top. Having that 3D depth to the shield really helps sell that it's a real physical thing and not something just dropped on afterwards. So yeah, as I mentioned, a very simple short effect, but I am pretty happy with the results. And that was my attempt at recreating some of Cap's shield effects from the Captain America series. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, I am uploading these to Instagram before I do the project deconstruction here. So make sure you follow me over there, make sure you subscribe here, and you won't miss a thing. Until next time though, thank you and goodbye.